Well, hello again. Well, today we're going to talk about rites of passages and especially menopause as a rite of passage. Where to start? Maybe the best place to start is on rites of passages, right? So, what's the role of rites of passages in our lives and what are rites of passages? So, you might remember, I don't know if you've seen some other videos that I've done, but there is a video that I'm talking about frames and lenses. And rites of passages are very, very important parts of our lives in which we go from enacting one role in our life to enacting something else. Like we change dramatically. What's required of us is something very different than was required before. So, for example, marriage is a rite of passage. So the life of a single person and the life of a couple is very different. What's required of you is very different. So the wedding is seen as a rite of passage. And of course, there's the whole thing that happens around the wedding, the preparation of the wedding, the people coming together, all of that is a rite of passage that will evoke in you the new behaviors, the new way of being in the world to support the new role. And of course, you'll be maturing in the role as you inhabit it. We have another rite of passage, which is parenting, when you move from a couple into becoming a father or a mother. And again, that's a dramatic rite of passage. And pregnancy and birth are it's the culmination of that. That's the rite of passage, and you become somebody new. So these rites of passages, we go through many rites of passages in our lives, from the first time you leave your house, when you move out, or when you have sex for the first time, when somebody that you love dies, it's a rite of passage. So there's a lot of them throughout our lives. But the ones that I'm going to focus on, especially in this series that I'm doing, are the biological rites of passages of the female body. So we're going to start. So the female, we can say that we our first rite of passage is birth. So when we're born into the world, of course, we don't remember. Then we have, for a girl, she has the menarche, which is her first period. Then if she decides to have a baby, she'll have pregnancy and birth, which is another fundamental rite of passage in a woman's life. And then she has the end of her fertile years. It's menopause. And she's got the rite of passage of that, which is the whole journey of perimenopause, which can last for up to 10 years for some women. But we're not going to do the rites of passages in sequence. Like naturally, you would be menarche, then pregnancy and birth, and then menopause. I'm going to start by doing menopause because I am in this phase. This is the phase that I'm going through. I'm in perimenopause. I'll probably have more videos talking about it, and we can go deeper into some aspects of this journey, but I just want to do an overview and just look through the lens of a rite of passage. So that's what we're going to be doing. And also, I think it's important to say that I'm really focusing on the rites of passages that we don't share with men. So, men will have a different version of that. He'll have his different rites of passages, but I'm focusing on the rites of passages that women and men have separately, or they're different. Because of course, in our lives, we focus a lot in what we have in common. And I can for sure take that perspective. Men and women have a lot more in common than differences. And yet there are fundamental differences that we need to really focus on to get clarity on why there is so much confusion in the world today, especially in relationships, that, as I said in another video, relationships that ripple into the systems that we create, because relationships form everything that we know, right? You have a partnership in a business, and then that business becomes something. It becomes a microsystem. And you have a family, it's a little system. And we have, all the larger systems that we already know. So understanding, the people that make those systems and going to the foundation of that, which is our bodies, feels very, very important. Rites of passages, right? So the person that you were is not enough for the new role you're going to be taking. So what are the parts that are very, very important to exist in a rite of passage? So you need the person that's going through something. So imagine in a tribe, and imagine a teenager boy that in tribal times, there's lots of tribes that used to create very difficult scenarios for boys when they become men. So in some situations, they were life-threatening. So he would be lost in the jungle or lost in the forest, and he'll have to come back on his own and figure out how to come back, and the whole village would wait for him. So if he survives and if he does what he's supposed to do, it's a massive rite. So a young boy, it requires, it evokes in him to become a man and to start developing those capacities, because a young boy would want to rely on somebody else. He's alone in the jungle, so he needs to rely on different mechanisms. When he comes back to the tribe, so the tribe has a fundamental role in the rite of passage to be complete, which is receiving this boy that now has gone through this rite and evoking, requiring, demanding of that boy that he behaves as a man. So he would have new roles. He would now have new responsibilities. He would be asked for more. So he wouldn't just go back into living as a boy. Otherwise, that new role that the rite of passage that he went through, it wouldn't sink in, and he wouldn't be able to metabolize that. So this is very important for you to keep hold of, because what happens in culture, and of course we'll spend time talking about the other rites of passages, but what happens in culture in the rite of passage of menopause, right, in perimenopause. So what happens is, when a woman's going through perimenopause, she's going through this dramatic change. So she starts being fertile in her menarche. So during menarche, during her first bleed, and some years prior to that, her body was already producing estrogen. So it was already doing its thing. So it's a coming and a becoming. And then she has her first period, and then she starts ovulating, she starts becoming fertile. Then menopause, at the other end of this, is when her fertility time, the expectations that she's a fertile being in the world with the purpose of procreating the species, is not her main purpose. She's got a different purpose in the world. So I'm simplifying here, and there are more videos that I'll do with more details, but just stick with me. So when a woman crosses the threshold of perimenopause and menopause, of course, her brain is going through dramatic changes. Her pathways in the brain are being rewired because they're having to learn how to live with diminishing amounts of hormones that they lived with for 30, 40 years. And then at the other end of that, there'll be minimum amounts of those hormones. That's dramatic, okay? That's a very, very big transformation. So one of these hormones, so estrogen, for example, we can look at estrogen from the perspective of being the hormone that's responsible for a woman accommodating to her context. So that's not a bad thing. That's a fundamental piece of what it is to be a woman, a cycling woman that has to really, what's required when you're a parent, a mom, is that you give of yourself. It's bhakti yoga. It's yoga of service. And I think who said that? I saw somewhere, Jane Collins, my teacher, mentioned, I think her teacher, Janine Pavati Baker, said something like that, that it's the bhakti yoga phase of a woman's life. She's devotional. It's her devotion to her family, devotion to her babies, devotion to her kids, to her nuclear family. So she's got estrogen, half of her cycle, and she's got progesterone, which is the other half of her cycle. And she cycles these two hormones, which we'll get more into it, but they're very, very different flavors. Okay, so one, let's say, is the puppy dog hormone, and the other one's the cat hormone, and they have fundamentally different roles, and both very important. And of course, you have love from the world when you are accommodating, and not so much love from the world when you're not accommodating. So, you can see how a woman would have learned to be more accommodating, even through the other phases of her cycle. That's a very important piece. And that's on both the society and also on women to start recognizing that and going, well, actually, my role is to be both. So that's when she's fertile. When she stops being fertile, I mean, there is this whole dramatic transformation, and she's literally, she is, I've done a poem about it that you can check it out on my YouTube. She's transforming. She's like she's not the caterpillar and she's not the butterfly. And I call that period mush because she's developing who she'll become. She's in the middle of it. And of course, she can work, she can do all sorts of stuff. But the fundamental parts of her are going to be so deep in transformation that if she's kept in the same job with the same expectations, with the same demands, with the same requirements, it'll keep her in the shape of the before, the woman she was before, because the world doesn't see that she's transforming into this incredible new person, this butterfly that needs to be now not so focused on her immediate tribe, but more focused on the larger tribe in whatever way she does that. It can be through her community work, through outer work, through her job, but it's just, she can do the same job, but her stance in the world is different. So hormonally speaking, she doesn't have the accommodating hormone anymore. So she'll be, and there's all sorts of different brain activations and things that happen that I won't get into it here in this video, because I'm focusing more on the bigger picture, not on the small detailed picture. We might get into that another time, but in the bigger picture, she's going through this incredible rite. When she's at the other side of the rite of passage, she's this new, mature woman. Of course, that doesn't happen overnight, but she's going through challenges. It's unprecedented, the amount of stories that I hear of women, finishing relationships, quitting jobs, moving places, putting boundaries. There's all sorts of things that happen, and they can also be explained hormonally. This is not just complete, our hormones are more who we are than we'd like to think. So the absence of estrogen will change your posture in the world. And that's absolutely perfect for the new role that you need to inhabit, which I call the role of the matriarch, which is very powerful and fundamental role to keep our society in check, keep our society, moving in the right direction.